The regular meeting of the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board will now come to order. First, we will have a brief notice read into the record. The public will be allowed to attend at a reduced rate of 25% of capacity. Once that capacity has been reached, admission into the meeting space will be closed, and all audience members will be required to wear a mask at all times. Masks will be available on request. All audience members will undergo a temperature screening as well prior to entering the meeting room. A period for written public comment will be provided before the meeting as well as before each action taken by the board on an action item. Individuals wishing to make a public comment about any of the posted action items will need to click on the agenda item in board docs and submit via the highlighted public comment link on the agenda item details. Upon the closing of the comments, the board president will read into the record the public comments that have been submitted. And I might add that there is a time delay in the broadcast and also a little time delay in just receiving through the internet the comments. So please be timely. I will try to allow a little bit of time between items so that comments can get in, but please be timely in putting them in. For the public attending the meeting, we will not be using comment cards tonight to maintain social distancing. So please state your name clearly for the record when you get up to speak. The public will be speaking from this one microphone here, and we will ask you if you have a public comment for in person, you come up to this microphone and make your comment. Should the building reach capacity, we will have overflow room on the outside, and then in the public comment period, we will cycle people in if there are more public comment, to give more public comment opportunities to anyone who is outside. We're doing our best to allow everyone to have access and public comment through all of these proceedings. I appreciate the public putting up with us as we go through this unusual times. And before we get started, I also want to highlight the work by our IT staff and the system staff in general for helping us pull all of this together. I think they've done an excellent job, and without their help, this would not have happened. So my thanks to all of you for that. Now we will have the call to order, invocation, and pledge of allegiance. The call to order and invocation by School Board Member Mark Ballou, and the pledge of allegiance led by School Board Member Dawn Collins.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You gonna, okay.
Please bow your heads and join me in prayer. Gracious Heavenly Father, thank you. Thank you for your love, many blessings that you bestow upon us. For your word, scripture, the sacrifice of your Son. We ask you today for guidance. We ask you to give us wisdom. We ask you to help us make good decisions that will impact our families and our children. During these special times, O Lord, we're all challenged. This is a brave new world, new normal. Peace that we find is knowing that you are there with us. You will guide us, that you will give us inspiration, your spirit, our experience. Lord, we ask all of these things in your Son's name.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I also forgot at the beginning of the meeting, if you are in the room and have cell phones, please make sure that they are placed on silent. Next, we'll go to the roll call. Madam Secretary.
District 7, President Godek.
Here.
District 3, Vice President Howard.
Present.
District 1, Mr. Blue. Here. District 2, Mr. Lannis. District 4, Ms. Collins.
Present.
District 5, Ms. Ware Jackson. District 6, Ms. Dyson. District 8, Ms. Bernard.
Present.
District 9, Mr. Tatman.
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Next, meeting minutes. Approval of the school board minutes of April 21, 2020, regular board meeting as published in the official journal. Do I have a motion? Motion by Ms. Dyson, Ms. Bernard. A second by Mr. Tatman. Are there any comments from the board? Seeing none, any comments from the audience? Seeing none, back to the board. Seeing none, we will vote via board docs, correct?
Please vote.
All the board members should have that coming up on their screen. If you go to the meeting minutes on the agenda item. Has everyone voted? No.
Ms.
Wait a
Dyson,
few
do
minutes
you
as
wanna
we're
just do a-
logging in.
Ms. Dyson, do you want to just give us a roll call? Yes.
Do we also have to vote verbally since we're in public? Okay. Working out the technical kinks. I can't see it, so. Okay, so the vote is 7 in favor, the motion carries. Next, for information only, the monthly financial report. Are there any questions from the board regarding the monthly financial report? I do have one question, Mr. Crochet, if you don't mind. A long walk to the microphone, I'm sorry. Is that for the, right here, yes. Mr. Crochet, my only question is right now, I've been reading things in the paper about the city parish and their view of tax receipts and things coming in. Do we have any view so far on what the impact might be on the 2019-2020 budget regarding sales tax collections?
Yes, sir. Excuse me. I have reached out to City Parish as well and spoken with their finance director and budget manager. And so for next year, they're using a rate, I think 7.6%. I've also reached out to the legislative auditor. They issued a report recently entitled COVID Effect on Local Governmental Revenues. And so they're looking at not only sales tax, but property taxes too. And so they looked at the year we're in next year and next year as well. So there's 3 different scenarios in there. There's optimistic, pessimistic, and average. So we are looking at those 2 sources of data along with our actual collections, albeit they're 45 days in arrears. Right. And to make it a little more complicated, they actually, or the Sales Tax Commission extended the deadline for filing. So 30-day extension. So it's really hard to look at our collections right now, but we're looking at all sources of data, the other 2 that I mentioned. And so.
Thank you. I know we're early on, but monthly as we go through this, I think that would be a key highlight to just keep us up to speed on what impacts they may be having on our anticipated and actual revenues. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Are there any other comments from the board? Are there any comments from the audience? Oh, this is for information only, so we don't need to vote. My mistake. Next are the report on personnel changes. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, we'll now move into subject item E1, the update from the superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Gode. I'd like for everyone to keep the family of Millie Williams in your prayers. Her husband, Freddie Williams, passed away, and his funeral is tomorrow morning. Freddie was a longtime employee of the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board, and he was also the first principal of Scotlandville High School when it became a magnet. So we will miss Freddie Williams, and so keep the family in your prayers. Today is the last day of school. I want to thank our students, our teachers, our parents, school staff, and everyone who worked so hard to make this year such a great year. And what a year it was. We've never seen anything quite like it. We missed an entire 9-week period. But I will tell you, the students, the teachers, everyone rose to the occasion and did what they needed to do to keep the education going and keep the children fed in our district. So I want to thank everyone for just a really great year. It's been one like nobody has ever had before, but I want to thank everyone for that. And truly, it was a time of stress on just about everybody. You know, this working from home makes it really more difficult because there's no start and stop time. It's all the time. So again, thank you for a great year. Look forward to continued learning this summer. I want to congratulate Dr. Cade Brumley for becoming the new State Superintendent of Education. He was superintendent in DeSoto Parish and Jefferson Parishes, and now is the State Superintendent of Education. I feel like he's going to do a really good job. I want to congratulate Natalie Roy, teacher from Glasgow Middle School. Natalie is one of the state semifinalists for Teacher of the Year, and we'll probably bring them to you in person at the June meeting. Also, congratulations go to Shalika Scott, principal of Scotlandville Pre-Engineering Magnet, who is a semifinalist for State Principal of the Year. Congratulations to both of those fantastic employees in our district. We're currently in phase 1 of the governor's reopening of the state. That means that offices and schools will remain closed during phase 1, but it doesn't mean that the public can't get information. The public will not be allowed in the buildings and in the schools in phase 1. That should end in about 2 weeks. At that time, we will look at what phase 2 looks like, what the governor and CDC regulations and guidelines are. But it doesn't mean you cannot get help. You can call your school, call the central office, and we will be glad to help you into phase 2. And seniors begin graduations this week. Congratulations to our graduates. If you think about this, the seniors in their 9th grade year, they were in school for 1 week until the flood started. So that was pretty traumatic. So they started off their 9th grade year with the flood, and they're ending their senior year with a pandemic. So what does that mean? It means that they are going to be resilient. They are going to be tough. They're going to be innovative. They're going to be able to do things that a lot of kids can't do. They're going to be ready for this world when they enter it into the next phase of their life. So we want to congratulate all of our seniors, and good luck moving forward into the next phase of your life. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Drake. Next, we will go to item F1, report out from board appointees to committees and agencies. Do any board members have any comments or reports to make from any agencies? Seeing none, we will move to new business, item G1, consideration of a request for the approval of the contract renewal between East Baton Rouge Parish School Board and the Unemployment Compensation Control Systems, LLC, in the amount of $144,000 each year for the period of 3 years beginning July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2023. Funding sources, general fund, grants, funds, and tax plans. Do I have a motion? Mr. Baloo, and seconded by Ms. Bernard. Are there any comments from the board? Seeing none. Any comments from the audience? And I have no comments coming on the internet line. Any comments from the audience? Seeing none, back to the board. Madam Secretary? I can't see. The motion carries. Next, we will go to item G2, consideration of a request for the approval of the interagency agreement between the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board and the Louisiana Department of Education in the amount of $224,000 to allow the district to approve child care assistance program applications. Funding source, Early Childhood Guide Pilot. Moved by Mr. Tatman, seconded by Mr. Howard. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Ms. Dyson, you're gonna have to make an effort for me to see you. we got no comments from the board. Any comments from the audience? Seeing none, back to the board. Seeing none, Madam Secretary? We may give a moment for Ms. Ware Jackson's computer to come live, so she may participate in the vote.
Please vote.
Are you still waiting on? Ms. Ware Jackson, if you want to record your vote verbally.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll go to item G3, consideration of a request for the approval of the following 2020-2021 pre-K grants. A, the Cecil J. Picard Early Childhood LA4 in the amount of $5,038,000, and B, Preschool Development Grant B5 in the amount of $854,205. Do I have a motion? Moved by Ms. Bernard, seconded by Ms. Dyson. Are there any comments and questions from the board? Seeing none, any comments and questions or any comments from the audience? Seeing none. Oh, I'm sorry. Would you please introduce yourself since we do not have cards?
My name is James Finney. Can you hear me
Wait,
through
wait.
the mask?
Microphone. Okay, go ahead.
My name is James Finney. Can you hear me through the mask? My concern with respect to this item is that it not go to fund four-year-old programs at Type 2 charters. I recently became aware that a Type 2 charter in Baker is funded by money that passes through this system and could have gone to another location. And I don't want this board to be in the business of funding the competitors' four-year-old programs that provide the bulk of their later students. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the audience? And my apologies, Mr. Finney, for not seeing you get up. Any other comments from the audience? Seeing none, any comments from the board? Seeing none, Madam Secretary?
Please vote.
Ms. Ware Jackson, are you live yet? Can you vote? And Mr. Lannis, if you're not live yet, you can vote verbally while waiting for the computer to come up. Yay, yes for Mr. Lannis. Thank you, sir. Madam Secretary, could you announce the, because with, from what I can see, the television audience cannot see the screen.
8 yes, 1 no.
8 yes, 1 no, the item passes. Next item is item G4. Consideration of a request for the approval of an interagency agreement between the East Baton Rouge Parish School System and the Louisiana Department of Education in the amount of $100,767 to provide high-quality curriculum training and support, curriculum training support and specialized support to special and regular education teachers who teach students with disabilities. Funding source, the redesign grant. Moved by Ms. Dyson, second by Mr. Howard. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, any comments or questions from the audience? And I'm refreshing my screen. There are no comments coming online or in person in the audience. Any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, Madam Secretary?
Please vote.
The item carries 9-0. Item G5, consideration of a request for the approval of the professional services contracts between the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board and the following. A, Great Minds PBC in the amount of $25,000 to provide Eureka Math virtual professional development. Funding source, redesign grant. B, Great Minds PBC in the amount of $30,000 to provide Eureka Math virtual professional development, launch, fluency, and customization. Funding source, redesign grant. C, The Writing Revolution in the amount of $79,812 to provide professional development on advanced thinking through writing part 1. Funding source, redesign grant. Item D, The Writing Revolution in the amount of $63,577.80 to provide professional development on advanced thinking through writing part 1. Funding source, Striving Readers Comprehensive Literacy. Do I have a motion? Motion by Ms. Bernard, seconded by Mr. Berlew. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Ms. Dyson? Ms. Dyson?
I just would like to see if there's anyone that can just come up and give us just a little bit of information about the writing revolution for striving readers, comprehensive literacy. Looks like it's real exciting to me to get some emphasis on this. And if you can tell us, which group of our teachers are going to get this PD? And is it a train the trainer or those kinds of things? Thank you.
Good evening, board members. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So the Writing Revolution and the Striving Readers Professional Development is specifically for our CIR and UIR schools. We're partnering with the Louisiana Department of Education so that we can increase writing for our students. We've noticed throughout the years, we've grown, of course, with our reading, we've grown with math, but writing has been a challenge. And for us as educators, writing is not something you learn how to teach. And so this opportunity provides like a science of writing. It helps us complement what we're doing in reading, but also with writing so that you have a full literacy approach with writing. And so it also, when you see the striving readers piece, it's really geared towards our students that are struggling the most, but it also enhances wherever our students may have challenges, but also those that need the strengths and other assessments. It has an assessment component, so it just provides a full scope of literacy for our students. And as far as teachers, it is a train the trainer model. So when we look at who's going to be trained, our content leaders and our teacher leaders, it provides an opportunity for them to support other teachers in implementing it.
I'll be real interested to see the data on what the return is and, as the years go on, how this impacts. And I'd love to see that we'd be able to send one teacher from each school site to participate so they can go back and train their group too. So this is just another good thing happening. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you.
Do any other board members have any comments? Seeing none, we now go to the audience. Does anyone in the live audience have any comments? Please step up to the mic and please state your name.
My comment's actually a question. My name is Jennifer Carwile. I'm in Mr. Tapman's district. I'm interested, it seems like that's a lot of money to spend on that program. Not that that's bad, but with Train the Trainer, my experience when I was a teacher is that 5 years was kind of a long tenure for a teacher. Will people be trained that will stay long enough to train people to use the program? That would be my concern. I'd like to just hear a little feedback on that. Thank you.
Everyone will get their exercise today. You can use this microphone here. Or no, you cannot. My bad.
We are certainly hopeful that we will be able to retain teachers as we provide them with this professional learning. Being that we've had such a wide investment in our teacher leaders and content leaders, year after year, we provide them with update information. And so this is one of those next steps as we really invest in those group of teachers that we look to as mentors, or those group of teachers that we look to really build sustainability of practice on their campuses. And so while we want teachers to say yes in the classroom and stay 3 to 5 years, it is our hope that, yes, we will continue to expand our teachers' knowledge, but sometimes we don't control the retention rates. We do a lot to do that, but we will have enough people around, I think, to sustain the learning, not only in our teachers, but also with our leaders. One key component of a lot of the professional development that we've started doing is making sure our leaders are a part of the training so that they can provide support not only to teachers, but instructional leadership as they go through different professional development opportunities.
Thank you, Dr. Tamal. Are there any other comments from the audience? I see no online comments. We will go back to the board. Any comments from the board? Seeing none, Madam Secretary?
Please vote. The vote is unanimous.
The motion carries. Next, we move to item G6, consideration of a request for the approval of professional services contract between the East Baton Rouge School Board and the following. A, Adaptive Solutions and Sherry Hollingsworth in the amount of $20,000 to provide assistive technology services and technical support. B, Audio Optical Systems of Austin Incorporated, Kurtzwell 300, in the amount of $47,892 to provide professional development, software, and comprehensive text-to-speech integrated literacy solution to students. C, Chase Healthcare, in the amount of $87,000 to provide LPN nursing services. D, D.S. Sullivan, in the amount of $20,000 to provide orientation and mobility evaluations and training services to ESS students. E, Deaf Resources Center of Greater Baton Rouge, LLC, in the amount of $80,000 to provide sign language interpreting services. F, NOMI Support Services, LLC, in the amount of $60,000 to provide training for staff for students autism spectrum disorder. G, Pediatric Services of America Incorporated, doing business as PSA Healthcare, in the amount of $483,000 for LPN nursing services. H, Dr. Kashunda L. Williams, LP, BC, BAD, NCSP, and Sundry Behavioral Sciences in the amount of $60,000 for applied behavioral analysis training. I, Turner LLC, in the amount of $621,000 to provide LPN nursing services, funding source IDEA. Do we have technical issues? I should pause for a second.
Which picture you got over there? Yeah. It's just the one that says Alpha.
I cannot hear you. Okay. Do I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Tapman, seconded by Ms. Bernard. Mr. Tapman. Please state your name.
Hello, my name is Jawanda Harris, and I wanted the board to take into consideration with this funding that you all put programs in place for children who are in between those stages of being diagnosed as having some type of ESS need within the school systems. Because from this year, the experience that I've had for my children, because of they only wanted to put them in eye care or internalize it as it's a behavior problem when it was ongoing. The process to get the diagnosis was ongoing. That is something that needs to be put in a school system immediately with the funding that's coming. Because at the end of the day, the children are always suffering from this. They're the ones that's being internalized as behavior problems and et cetera, not looking at the fact that the services in between and the process that it takes for various diagnoses, especially autism, is something that needs to be looked into.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any other comments from the audience? And there are no other comments on the internet. Moving back to the board, any comments or questions from the board? Mr. Lannis.
A bit curious because I noticed there are several services that we are rendering for LPN nursing services. So I count at least 4 of them, possibly 3. And I was just curious as to know why are we venturing out with several different vendors for the same services? Why not go through one vendor and get an overall cap on the amount of money that we're spending?
Mr. Smith is coming up to address that.
Mrs. Chapman is online as well, but Mr. Lannis is primarily because the availability of nurses. So we have to contract with more than one company vendor to get the needed nurses that we needed.
Okay.
Are there, does that?
Yeah, that was good.
Thank you, Mr. Lannis. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Are there any other comments or questions? Have I gone to the audience? Yeah, okay. Any other comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, Madam Secretary?
Please vote. The item carries.
The item carries. Next, we go to item G7. Consideration of a request for the approval of a waiver from the East Baton Rouge Parish School System Local Personnel Accountability Plan, including effectiveness and demand stipends for teachers and administrators for the 2019-2020 school year due to COVID-19 school closures. Motion by Mr. Lannis, second by Ms. Ware Jackson. Do I have any comments or questions from the board? Ms. Dyson.
On this item, is there anyone that can give us a little bit more information about these demand stipends?
Well, I think I can help. The Compass evaluation system from the state is a year-long process, and we were not able to complete it. It was one of the waivers that the state gave all school systems. So without completing that, there was no way to have an official evaluation of employees this year. So everything stopped where it was. You get additional money based on where you land in that evaluation. So because of that, we're asking for a waiver from that policy that gives additional monies. So that's the basic. I know Daphne's here. I think Daphne's here as well. Okay, if you need additional information, but it all boils down to, we were not able to complete evaluations.
And we don't have a funding source to provide any stipends.
Well, we have a funding source, but we can't pay stipends when you don't have the evaluation because you don't know where the teachers landed
I see.
in the evaluation.
So we're asking for a waiver to pay the
Waiver from the.
from having to pay stipends without evaluations. Okay, thank you very much.
Ms. Collins?
Actually, it should come after this, it's a request for personal point of privilege, so it should come after.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, we now move to the audience. Microphone's not on. Now go ahead.
Thank you. If you're asking for a waiver from the usual policy, it would seem reasonable to suggest what you're going to do in the absence of that usual policy. Would that be to pay nobody any stipend, or pay everybody an average amount as funds allow, or punt that till next month? And I couldn't tell the answer from Ms. Donaldson's memo that was attached as backup. Thank you.
Is she,
Hello, yes, can you,
if she's
can you
not,
hear me? I'm here.
policy under the Personnel Accountability Plan provides for effectiveness stipends. The effectiveness is based on the evaluation. The state waived all evaluations this year, so there will be no stipends because of that.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Divine Jones. Along with what this gentleman was saying, even though that they weren't able to complete all of the evaluations, I mean, teachers still worked hard, and can't we just average the ones that they did get and still give them something, even if it's a minimum? I mean, I understand there's a policy, but policies can be edited in times of crisis. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Is that Miss Daphne Donaldson?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Can you hear me? Or
Yes, very loud and clear.
okay. I'm sorry. So the waiver is because in the Personnel Accountability Plan, it is set that if a person gets a certain evaluation score, they would get a certain set stipend. Due to the fact that the state waived the testing, which counts for 50% of the scoring, we're not able to do that. Now, does that mean that we won't offer stipends next year for anything else? No, that's a totally different thing. Those types of stipends are done differently. This is purely based upon Compass, and we have to do this because we are not, we're not utilizing student test data to do and finalize evaluations. And also because the evaluations are connected to teacher certification, the state had to waive that for this year. So we're just doing this in alignment with the state. But it doesn't mean that down the road, if there is an ability to provide a stipend, that the district would not consider that.
Thank you. We've got to finish the public first. Are there any other comments from the public? And I'm checking the website. And I do not see any. Now, Mr. Lannis.
Yes, sir. So this is out of curiosity. Whenever there is a waiver of this kind, would we not what's the word I'm looking for? Defer to last year's scores? Much like what happened in terms of accountability with the flood, how we referred to the prior year scores rather than using the year of the flood. Would we not do the same thing with the teacher evaluation process?
I don't know. I guess the board can do anything they want to. This is aligning us with the state's waiver. They were paid the stipends based on their scores last year, and it would be paying them again for the same score they made. You know, this has been an unusual year, and we've never seen anything like this. There's never been a waiver of this. So, I mean, our recommendation is to follow the state's recommendation, which is there's no compass evaluation this year. There can be no effectiveness rating because there's no compass evaluation.
Understandable, but does this in any way harm or hinder teachers? That would be my next question.
Say that again?
Would this in any way harm or hinder teachers from not receiving those stipends? I'm just curious.
Well, this is money in addition to their salary based on their evaluation. So, I mean, I guess you could say it could, yes, it would be less money than they would get based on whatever rating they got on their evaluation. So that's something that you would have to look at. But we're following the state's guideline, which is there's no compass this year. There can be no effectiveness rating. Therefore, there cannot be a payment based on the effectiveness rating.
Okay.
Any other comments from any other board members? Seeing none, Madam Secretary?
Please vote. Eight yes, one abstain.
Thank you. The motion carries. In giving with our very lenient policy regarding public comment, I do not know the last item before this had a public comment that either I did not see or it came in because of the time delay. So I will just read it very briefly. This relates to the professional services contract. And this is from Storm Matthews, saying there has been zero training for Kurtzwell in the schools. We have requested this multiple times. Will training actually be provided? So thank you, Ms. Matthews, for your comment. Next, we'll go to item 8, G8. Consideration of a request for the approval of the revised 2019-2020 general fund budget for East Baton Rouge Parish system. Is Mr. Crochet or Ms. Lopez going to do any presenting, or may I have a motion first? Motion by Mr. Tapman, seconded by Ms. Bernard.
Good evening, board members and Mr. Drake. The 2019-2020 school year budget did end successfully. The general fund ended with a balance of approximately $680,000 and a total fund balance of approximately $44 million. This is a total revenue as a percentage of fund balance of 10%. With ad valorem increasing significantly by 4% and keeping sales tax flat, local revenues increased by $5.4 million. MFP decreased by only about $200,000 due to limited loss of students, and the district received CDBG funding for the flood for $370,000. The major expenditures for this year were repair and maintenance, which increased by $2.4 million due to the ADA compliance repairs at several of our schools, as well as our aging bus fleet. Charter schools, inclusive of both type 1 and type 2, increased by $2.8 million over proposed estimates. Staffing did maintain the way we expected it to in our proposed budget, with increasing by only 46 positions, and these positions were primarily as aides, therapists, and counselors. Gas decreased approximately $800,000 due to the lower prices and COVID-19. Substitutes also decreased $200,000 due to COVID-19. And the rental of buses increased by $300,000, but we're hoping will be a expenditure that will go away next year once we continue with the Volkswagen and DERA grants to purchase new buses.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the board? Mr. Howard.
Yes, Ms. Lopez, if you could send us some information regarding the changes directly impacted by COVID-19 and how we plan to offset those changes with money that's received from the federal government as a relation to COVID-19, that would be helpful to us, to me. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And that, Mr. Howard, that's a very good question. Does this budget anticipate receipt of money directly related to COVID-19, or how is that handled?
The 2019 does not right now. Much like with the flood, we're putting the COVID expenses in our capital projects or in our flood relief budget in their own accounts, so we can keep track of them so that we can provide documentation to federal government and FEMA and receive reimbursement at this point.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from the board? Any questions or comments from the audience?
I think Ms. Ware Jackson has a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Ware Jackson.
Question about transportation. Would you give me those transportation numbers again? And I'd like to know what we average monthly on transportation costs. Out of curiosity here, that's a pretty significant change in that 800,000.
It was not just because of the COVID, it was also because of dropping oil prices, which helped significantly. I would have to look that information up for you, but I can get that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lannis.
Yes. Ms. Lopez, do you have a rough estimate or number of how much we're looking to be reimbursed at this time?
Right now, their percentages are 75-25, but that can change at any time. But that is what the FEMA representatives are telling us, is a 75-25 coverage.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the audience? I do have one online. This is from, put on my glasses, Maria Harmon. After reviewing the revised budget, I encourage the EBR School Board to uphold their fiduciary responsibilities in utilizing resource equity with our tax dollars in meeting the needs of all children in our school system. It is proven that if all the needs of a child are met in a school setting, they will thrive academically. Thank you, Ms. Harmon. Any other questions from or comments from the audience? Seeing none, back to the board. Seeing none, Madam Secretary.
Please vote.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez.
The item passes unanimous, and Ms. Collins has a comment.
Thank you, Ms. Collins.
Superintendent, last time, and my colleagues on the board and the public, last time we met, our General Counsel Gwen Shamlin had lost his mother But I don't know if we took a moment today to recognize that he also lost his father to the COVID-19. And I just ask that we lift him up, him and his family up in prayer, that they find peace at this time. And if we could just take a brief moment of silence for him and his family.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bernard.
Mr. Tapman was,
Oh, Mr. Tapman was first? Okay.
yes, sorry.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to also recognize that former Vice President and a member of this school board, Judge Tarvold Smith, lost his father to a stroke 2 weeks ago.
Mr. Tapman?
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess it's a point of personal privilege, but are we looking at, to leadership, are we looking at addressing or having some sort of a workshop on the impact of the COVID episode on our budget? I know you all are. I thought maybe it would be good to share with the public what the plans are forward, because clearly there's going to be some pretty significant budget impacts. And I realize it's too early to tell, right, because the numbers don't come in, but I just, wanted to ask is there a plan moving forward, and if not, just urge one, that's all, about how are we going to collect that data, and then how are we going to communicate that to the public, and so that we can all begin to try to find solutions to it. So
sure. No, that's a very good point. And yes, we are thinking about how best to do that. Right now, the goalposts keep moving very rapidly. So we will be presenting very shortly a proposed budget for 2021. But I fully suspect that budget will probably be revised shortly after. And also, in the meantime, hopefully we will have a new superintendent coming in, so that new superintendent. So I would envision probably we will pass a budget that reflects the best knowledge that we have, but sometime in August, we'd probably come back and do a revised budget. I don't know, Mr. Drake, if you have other comments or thoughts.
I think right now our budget for this next year looks pretty good, but we've cut additional monies, about $6 million. But once school begins, that's when we're really going to find out, the number of students we have and what's going on. I think this board we can recommend, and you can pass a balanced budget this year, next month in June. But as Mr. Gode says, I do believe there's going to be some serious conversation once school starts, once back up, how that looks. There's a lot of moving parts here. So there will definitely, it's not where you start, it's where you end. And so I think this staff has done an amazing job working on the budget the last 2 years. We've cut over $55 million in the last 4 years from this budget, and maintained and grew academically, which I think is pretty significant. And so I want to thank our staff for that. And we'll have to do it again. And there's just no way we can tell exactly what impact this fall will look like, but we're going to be ready to attack it. You saw yesterday where I've asked Dr. Rutledge to focus strictly on distance learning, and we're going to have some looks at where we can do this, what type of facility we can go into. Education is going to change forever from this, so we'll be ready for it. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Dyson?
Yes, you just touched on it, and I was curious about the distance learning, and I've seen, through some parents talking that there may be situations where maybe one parent decides that they may take a group of children from around the area or something and help them with distance learning, but still stay a part of our system. And I really think that we need to actively be coming up with scenarios where we can provide professional development with parents, grandparents, anyone that is interested and they're going to be a host for numbers of children in small groups and that kind of thing. So I'm just hoping that we put some professional development plans in place, because I think we're going to need every partner, and so that they can stay a part of our school system as we kind of walk through this, especially in the beginning of the year. And if we could do some of that this summer, prepping these parents to be able to take that lead.
That's absolutely a part of this. And I'll even take it to the next level. We're looking for a hub for our distance learning program where we can actually attract in our homeschool students who will have a place where they could go and get research and help if they want it. Mothers could drop them off there, or families could drop them off there for a day. And so we could even gain back homeschool students. There's a lot of moving parts here that we're really working on. Professional development has to be the biggest part because it's new to all of us.
And I think so, PR has to be, and our communications around it, we need to be really thinking through right away, because they're making plans right now on what's going to happen when they go back to school.
That's right.
Or when the parent goes back to work, so.
No doubt about it. Let me also say this. This board, you guys gave us the money to purchase over 30,000 computers in the same year that we cut $13 million. You did us a great service by allowing us to do that, because we knew this was coming. We knew that computers in the hands of students was coming. And of course, it's here much faster than we even thought with totally out of the school buildings. And so that is a big part of it as well. So thank you, Ms. Dyson.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll try to get back on the agenda. No, no problem. Next is item G9, consideration of a request for the approval of the following school board policies and related matters. Policy EBBD and policy GBRIBC. And those policies are listed in the board docs, and they are part of our policy manual. Do I have any, Ms. Bernard? Oh, motion, I'm sorry. Ms. Bernard makes the motion. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Lannis. Any questions and comments from the board? Ms. Ware Jackson. Your microphone's not on.
Okay, I'm on. I'm always asking for a brief overview of policy so that our people at home can understand anything that's going on in the policy realm. So would you please? Thank you.
Got it. The first policy, EBBD, basically expands an existing board policy regarding the cancellation of school, taking into account issues not previously considered by the board or any district for that matter, and that is a pandemic. Allows for the superintendent make the announcement and provide the information
Bear with us, we're getting a better microphone.
Allows the superintendent the authority to make the appropriate public announcements with consultation by the board, requires notification of media, authorizes the superintendent further to determine what employees of the system are essential employees for purposes of continuing to provide services in situations like we've just encountered. The next policy is GBRICB. Expands existing policy with regard to emergency leave in light of acts passed in connection with COVID-19, adding additional leave that amounts to, an additional allotment of what is Family Medical Leave Act leave, and also allows for the payment of employees, allows them to use paid leave in addition to the unpaid leave, while also providing a cap on the amount per day and the aggregate amount of payment. And the policy expansion really is effective for the period April of 2020 through December of 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Blunt. Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, we'll go to the audience. Any questions or comments from the audience? I will give the internet a few moments to catch up. Seeing none, back to the board. Madam Secretary.
Please vote. Item carries.
The item carries. Next, we will go to item G10. Consideration of a request to receive the superintendent search survey report on semifinalists, for semifinalists. Do I have a motion? Ms. Dyson? Do I have a second? Mr. Howard? Is Mr. Guerrero on the line?
Yes, sir, I am here.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, all. All right, I'll be brief with my updates. So I believe everyone should have a copy in their board docs with the community engagement survey report and data. So if you were to advance to page 9, I'll quickly highlight some of the key points. As of 2 days ago, when we provided this report, there have been more than 2,000 views of the online interviews that were posted of the 5 candidates in consideration for the board. Since this report was provided for this particular board document, we've received approximately 30 more online surveys. So I know this report references 114 roughly online surveys, but as of today, there's approximately 145. So this is 2 days, a little bit behind schedule, just due to the policy of providing this information. One thing I like to identify is that due to the COVID and the crisis that we're all dealing with, it's been my experience, not only serving here locally in Baton Rouge, but other communities around the country, that individuals, families, members of the communities are less responsive to online surveys. And I think folks are feeling overwhelmed with just, the day-to-day life of managing the pandemic. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. So two of the key primary themes that we've heard in reading and reviewing the online survey is one is how do we all as a community and as a school system address the pandemic while prioritizing resources in an equitable manner for all students. So that's first and foremost. And then secondly, one of the other themes is how will this incoming superintendent engage with the community during the crisis, and how will he or she serve the community in an equitable fashion, excuse me. And if I may, with the school board president's approval and at the board's pleasure, read a couple of the comments that I pulled from the online survey. All right, so bear with me. I'm just going to read a few of the comments that were pulled from the survey from the community members who submitted the responses. As the coronavirus 19 pandemic looms, tell us what would the 2020-21 academic school year will look like if you're selected superintendent. Second comment, I am highly encouraged with the talent we have been able to attract to this position. We are at a critical time for students in EBR, and the next leader must act with urgency. We can't simply continue to do what we have always done. Our magnet programs and affluent schools, while amazing programs, have carried the district for too long and allowed us to believe we're serving all students when we're not. We need someone who is tested, proven, and creative in their approach to serving students. Third comment. Thank you for the opportunity for all shareholders to asynchronously share in this process. Voice and choice is important. Finally, if at all possible, please keep one team, one mission. Fourth and last comment that I'll read for you, the future superintendent needs to do a better job connecting with all EBR school community. He or she needs to have a clear vision and plan of how to prepare us, EBR school community, in parentheses, now for the future. So that's the first, the final comment that I'll read for you. And lastly, I'd like to just thank the staff and the entire school board for your diligence during this critical time. I know it's been difficult to communicate with everyone, but I think as a board and as a staff, you've done a tremendous job with outreach. And I think it's apparent with the tremendous amount of views of the online surveys exceeding more than 2,000 it's highly indicative of the community's engagement in this process. So although the online survey didn't garner as many responses as we received during the first survey, as I mentioned earlier, I think this is just a common trend and a trait that we're seeing nationwide. I think folks are feeling overwhelmed with all the technological demands and requests that they may be receiving on a day-to-day basis. So that's the end of my brief report. Open to answering any questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Guerrero. Are there any questions and comments from the board? Ms. Bernard.
Mr. Guerra, I had hoped that we would receive all of the comments in part of the document, and is it possible for us to receive those comments? Can you send them to the board?
We can extract them in a file. There's quite a few. So if at the board's will, if that's a unanimous request, by no means it's no trouble whatsoever.
So I will just speak, if it is not a big item to do, then I would suggest that you compile those and send it to us.
Okay.
I'd rather err on the side of having more information than less.
No problem.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bernard. Any other comments or questions? Okay, now we will move to the audience for public comments. And just as we go through here, I have a series of public comments on the internet. And I will say, Mr. Finney, you can have one choice or the other. I can either read your comment or you can make yours in public on this item. So I won't read your comment if you speak publicly. Is that okay? Okay, thank you. So please, sir, you can lead off.
Thank you. I had very low expectations of a survey at this point, especially since it didn't ask the respondents for their preference among the semifinalists. So I'm not sure what the relevance this is to the superintendent search semifinalists. But even with my low expectations, I was terribly disappointed. There are up to 140 apparently respondents whose comments aren't going to be visible to the public before you select finalists. Furthermore, the 5 or so questions that were asked, invited responses ranking them from 1 to 5, and all we see as members of the public are averages. That's almost completely useless feedback. And that would be bad enough, but you only got 140 some responses. You have 6,000 staff members that might have responded. You had a couple thousand views that decided it wasn't worth the time to click 5 buttons. There are 40,000 students represented in your process tonight on a population of several hundred thousand, and you got 145 responses. So I don't know what the selection criteria was for those comments either, but it was, I would hope you wouldn't use this search firm to have you collect any other community interest data ever. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Finney. Are there any other comments from the in-person audience? We have someone walking up now.
Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry, I'm a little short. Sierra Hart of the South Louisiana Coalition for Education and fourth-year educator here in Baton Rouge. So as far as the survey results go, I implore the board to work in tandem to gather more community support and engagement. Similar to Mr. Finney's comments, if we can have 2,000 views as well as over 50 attendees for a town hall attended by president and vice president of the board, I believe that if our board worked in tandem to gather more community input as a unit, then maybe we would have had more responses. Also, it's a little concerning being that the comments have not already been given to you all, or the data hasn't already been given to you all. So how can you use that data to make a decision today? Is it that that decision is being made without the survey responses? I'm a little unclear in regards to that. And I hope that for the finalist portion of this process that we'd have more innovative ways to gather community input. We are aware that we are in a pandemic, but that does not mean that community engagement stops. And now is more than ever the time to be creative. So I suggest that the board work in tandem to figure out what ways can we include the community if obviously a survey is not working, being that it only garnered 145 responses. So my push is that innovation from this point forward in this process is the board's priority when it comes to engaging the community, and SLICE is always here in order to help you do that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any other in-person comments? Seeing none, I will begin to read the internet comments after I refresh here. The first one is from Mr. Michael Haberross. If I pronounced that correctly, if not, I apologize. In my view, the new superintendent should be a strong advocate for traditional public schools, not a cheerleader for the charter movement. He or she should be committed to strengthening and improving the system that is already in place, offering high-quality education to all, regardless of income or address, rather than opening the door to charter networks promising choice in return for lower accountability. Thank you. Next is from Miss Erica Hammer. My name is Erica Hammer. I was a student of East Baton Rouge Parish from kindergarten through 12th grade. I rode the school bus most days and attended both regular and gifted programs. I was also a teacher in East Baton Rouge Parish Public Schools for 15 years, serving elementary students in both the regular and gifted programs, as well as LEAP tutoring and summer school. I now live in Mid-City Baton Rouge and am a parent of a 5-year-old. There are some major issues in both high and low performing schools that must change for me to become comfortable in placing my child in the school district in which I have been invested my entire life. I am 43 years old and I have seen the same issues linger on and worsen for decades. I listened to all the superintendent candidate interviews. This district students, parents, and teachers cannot wait for a new leader that needs time to get to know our community and collect more data to identify needs. They do not want to hear about developing visions. They want to see a list of workable action items that can be implemented immediately to resolve these problems as swiftly as possible. Dr. Quintina Tamal and Adam Smith both have a clear understanding of the greatest needs in the district, as well as detailed plans of action they're eager to put into motion. Dr. Nakia Towns also seems to have thoroughly done her homework to get to know our district before applying for this job and has experience addressing the specific types of problems our district experiences. I was impressed by Dr. Tamal's presentation to the school board about the improvements made at by the students at alternative schools and when she changed the school climate from punitive to empathetic. This is the type of innovative idea that is possible to accomplish great good throughout our district. Dr. Tamal is the type of leader we need. Neither Marshall Tuck nor Leslie Brown answered the interview questions from a place of knowledge of our district's greatest needs, nor do they provide explicit changes they would implement here to address those needs. Tuck said in his interview, "I don't know a ton about Baton Rouge." Tuck would be especially destructive to those families already suffering the most in this community by further isolating them through privatization by an expansion of charter schools. There may be a place in EBR for a few charters providing specialized services such as dyslexia and behavioral health, but charters ought not fulfill the same function as magnets. Charter schools are not the answer to all of our district's problems. Parents want to feel their child is being nurtured at the neighborhood school without wait lists and entrance tests and applications, without the threat of being pressured to transfer schools to improve data. I am asking that you use your vote to eliminate both Tuck and Brown from the candidacy pool because they are not what our district needs at this moment. Thank you for requesting and listening to the members of this community that are personally invested in our East Baton Rouge public school system. Okay, I'm gonna finish reading this and come back. Next is from Devin White. I want to thank the board for your attempts thus far at community engagement in this process. While it is certainly noted, it is also just not enough. Tonight, I ask each individual board member to fully exhaust every resource at your disposal to ensure engagement. 112 survey responses should be seen as an indictment on you, particularly when you serve 41,000 plus students with 5,200 plus full-time employees in a city with over 220,000 residents. Few of you are going above and beyond. A few of you are going above and beyond. Thank you. But we deserve much more effort on your part to include the people who will be directly impacted by the results of this process. Next is from Quinitha Williams. Good afternoon. As a parent of a magnet student in EBR, I would like you to consider hiring Dr. Nakia Towns as our next superintendent. The evidence of how her strategies and support has enhanced academic growth proves that she is qualified for the job. It is my hope that you all will choose wisely, as the future of our students and community depends upon it. Sincerely, Quintina Williams. Next is Quinyawa Jackson. I imagine that searching for the right superintendent must be a stressful task. However, it is an important one. I am the product and a parent of a student in the East Baton Rouge Parish school system. For years, I have watched the concern for student success decline in the school district. It has been my observation that due to challenges and the lack of accountability in central office, our schools are suffering tremendously. I am supporting Nakia Towns because I strongly believe she will be firm, fair, and not intimidated when it comes to making the necessary changes in the central office. Enough is enough. It is time for the school district to start back focusing on what's mostly important, students. Respectfully, Quinyana Jackson. Next is from Kohana Corley. Ethics is defined as the moral principles that govern a person's behavior or the conducting of an activity. In this superintendent search, EBR Public Schools has committed ethical violations. I spoke on record about the news media story that the board failed to issue a disclaimer on. Recently, the Baton Rouge Business Report published an article with a CEO who is strongly affiliated with board members, endorsed 2 candidates. No disclaimer has been published on behalf of East Baton Rouge Parish Schools. You have now sent a bias survey that required the individuals' names, email addresses, and school board district representative. How is this survey considered in line with Louisiana Code of Ethics? How transparent is the board in this process? From what I've disclosed so far, this board is exhibiting a favorable bias to the business stakeholders instead of to the parents whom children actually attend. I strongly recommend this board redo the survey in an unbiased manner. Next is from Jane Como. The comments for the survey are not available for the public to review. This is a concern of me and other people. And I'm going to refresh this, and while that is refreshing, ma'am, please step to the microphone.
Hello, my name is Jawanda Harris, and I wanted to make a statement that in choosing the next superintendent, the children, the voice of the children should be heard first. The children and the families, because that's what they are there to serve. I've had experience with the administration of East Baton Rouge up until March the 12th of this year. And I can say and attest that I would not choose Mr. Smith at all to be a superintendent to lead an entire school system when he couldn't address the concerns of one parent. I was late. I mean, my concerns, they tried to silence me by coming up with do not appear at the school paperwork and all of that. Why? Because of people they knew. That I've known this person, this principal, for 20 years. I've worked with this assistant principal for a certain amount of time. Louisiana is always at the bottom of every list that's not positive because we continue to bring in individuals that we know, that we have relationships with, that they keep moving forward because of their network. It's time to choose individuals that's going to stand for the children, the educating of our children. If we want to see better things and outcomes for our state, it has to start with individuals who are concerned with our future. And I would advise Mr. Smith would not be one. He does not act. He fails to act. He diverts his duties to the next individual, and they do not get them solved. Up until the last day, that Friday, when they said the schools would be out, I was dealing with them for weeks, not getting any resolve to my concerns about my children, the harassment that they were receiving. And so if you're going to choose someone, I would advise that you choose someone who has the children first and not be based on whether they're from Baton Rouge, whether they're homegrown. It's about the abilities that they're going to be able to put forth for our future.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear if we were supposed to do these. I was waiting till the number 11 coming up. So
Well,
if it's all right to do it now.
No, you can do it now or do it at number 11.
Well, I'm standing here, I'll do it now. That's all right. I'm with the Progressive Social Network, and I would just like to read a statement that we've put out in what we're looking for. The preamble to the education section of the Louisiana State Constitution states that the goal of public education system is to provide learning environments and experiences at all stages of human development that are humane, just, and designed to promote excellence in order that every individual may be afforded an equal opportunity to develop their full potential. So that's something that's in our Constitution. And one of our main goals is that we follow the Constitution and give everybody their rights. We are looking for a superintendent who has experience in a district-run public school. We are looking for someone who has a comprehensive understanding of a school district like ours, with similar racial and socioeconomic makeup, dedicated to strengthening democratically controlled public school systems, a track record of listening to and working with parents, uplifts teachers as professionals, puts children's well-being first and foremost. We have to have a strong understanding of social emotional development, as well as the importance of development of ages 0 through 3 as a foundation for all learning that follows. We need someone who understands that test scores are not a flawless measurement of knowledge, but are often a measurement of socioeconomic status. We're looking for someone who is willing to advocate for a moratorium on more charter school applications and limit the expansion of charter schools based on the fiscal health of our district. And we would like to see someone who is willing to live in the East Baton Rouge Parish School footprint. If you are having, I'm sorry, I've lost my words. We'd like someone to, live in the district. That is our statement from Progressive Social Network. I'm going to step aside now and say my statement from Jennifer Carwile. I believe that we had some strong sounding applicants, but Mr. Tuck concerns me because he does not have a large school district experience, and I'm really not impressed with his extensive charter background. I think we need to be looking at how we maintain our money and our control. I have some experience with children in my life that go to charter schools, and there's really no way to, they're not getting a great education, and there's not a whole lot of way to stand up against that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next.
Hi, I am Anita Augustus, and I am currently the president of the East Baton Rouge Parish Association of Educators, but I am also a teacher in this district. It concerns me that Michael Tuck received 5 votes, straight down racial lines. That concerns us as educators. Why? We're ready for that answer. Why were there 5 votes straight down racial lines? Our community is diverse. We're expecting someone to be diverse, okay? Also, we are concerned about Leslie Brown. Leslie Brown has not done her homework. We're concerned about that. And Mr. Tuck didn't even take the time to study our community. So how can you even have somebody even considered who didn't study our wonderful community? Because we do have a wonderful, diverse community. We as educators want to see someone who will bridge the gap. Charters are here, and we are not opposed to charters, but we are opposed to charters who are scoring scores less than what our public schools are doing, and they're still allowed to remain. We have a problem with that. We want to know what is the next step that the superintendent has to bridge the gap between us. We want to work on the same page. We're willing to do the work. And by evidence of our scores that our schools have gone up, that we are willing to do the tough work. But give us something to work with. Give us someone who will return calls, who will answer emails. We have someone who is on the list that won't respond to emails. That concerns us. Yet we have someone else who's on the list who responds to emails in a very efficient manner. Educators need to know that we can work in tandem with the person that will be selected.
Thank you. Now we'll come back to any other comments from the audience. I have received one more on the internet during this period, and it is it's from Storm Matthews saying, while I'm not providing an endorsement for either EBR candidate, I can attest to Mr. Adam Smith acting and being very knowledgeable on every level of EBR. He has handled situations from the employer, the middle school parent, the elementary parent, and the special ed parent. I appreciate his timely communication and his trust in public ed. Are there any other comments from the audience? Comments from the board? Mr. Howard.
Yes. I just wanted to, I appreciate your comments and your thoughts, Ms. Anita Augustus, around what happened during the first round of interviews. But I think it's very important for us as a public, as a body who is witnessing this live information, that we are sure about the information that we present in a public matter, as we are all stakeholders within this district. And I just wanted to correct the information that the first round of votes for Mr. Tuck were not divided around racial lines. As a matter of fact, there were 2 African-American board members who actually voted in favor of Mr. Tuck, and 3 of white board members who voted in favor of Mr. Tuck. While that has no role in playing how we vote tonight, I just want to make sure that we are, as all stakeholders, are presenting information to the public on all platforms that is accurate and correct information. So I just wanted to correct that information regarding the first round of votes. But as always, I appreciate your comments.
Thank you. Are there any other board members who would like to comment on receiving the report from JG Consulting? Seeing none, Madam Secretary?
Please vote.
No. I'm saying, are you ready? Do we have the, oh.
Passes 8-0.
The motion carries. Next item is discussion, consideration of selection of the candidates for superintendent finalists. Ms. Dyson.
I move the candidate nominations for the position of superintendent of schools proceed as follows. Each board member will nominate up to 3 names on the form provided by the board secretary. The board president will read the nominations into the record. The board secretary and consultant will tally the nominations and announce the results. From these results, the board will invite the top candidates who receive a minimum of 5 votes to proceed to the final round of interviews. Should only one candidate meet the 5-vote threshold for nomination, a second round of voting will be taken with only those candidates who receive 4 votes in the first round above being considered, with each board member having 1 vote. The voting will continue until a second candidate reaches the 5-vote threshold. And I so move.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Ms. Collins. Sorry, had a brain freeze. So just to review for the board and the public, each board member will select 3 candidates, or up to 3 candidates. They do not have to select 3, but a maximum of 3 candidates, and we will tally the votes, and 5 plus puts you into the finalist round. And if we have only 1 finalist, then we will look at the people who have 4 votes and vote on those to get a second finalist. I'm sorry. Mr. Lannis.
Question, just for clarity. I know that on the motion that board member Dyson presented, it says that you will read the nominations into record, but I was just curious, will we have the opportunity to read our own particular votes that we want into the record, and then we just give you the paper out there?
That is perfectly okay if you would like that.
Just making
sure. The way we will do that, we will go through and we will announce the vote in district order. Yes, and so I will ask for all of the votes to me, and I would ask to have your signed copy But then when it comes to your district, if you would like to read your votes, you certainly have that opportunity.
So the
to
same
do.
process as last time?
Same process as last time.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, we will go to the audience.
Thank you. My name is James Spinney. Here in the motion, my 3 points I was going to make have expanded to 4 because I'm a math teacher and I can't help myself. It's not clear what happens if one candidate gets 5 or more votes and nobody else receives a minimum of 4. So you may want to clean that up with a friendly amendment, just so it's clear what happens if one gets 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 and nobody else gets 4 or more. The first point that I was going to make is that while I appreciate Mr. Blunt stepping in the temporary absence of your regular general counsel, I am concerned that he's advising you on this matter in any way while also serving on the board of New Schools for Baton Rouge, because it seems to me the employees of that organization have interwoven themselves into the background of this process in a pretty heavy-handed way. And I'm worried about the impression of the possibility of a possible conflict of interest if Mr. Blunt's serving both roles. I won't comment on the 3 candidates that I know very little about, so I have a comment on 2 of them. First, those of you that are on the board and have been for several years may recall that I applied for the last 2 superintendent positions you had because I thought you might be open to candidates who didn't fit the traditional qualifications. My sense from this process was you were looking for somebody who is traditionally qualified to be a superintendent of a school system in Louisiana. To that end, I must say that Marshall Tuck appears to be completely, absolutely, unequivocally unqualified to even be considered and to have gotten this far. So please don't corrupt your process by bringing him in for an interview. I know that the last several superintendents have come from outside the system, Charlotte Placide being one exception. I would like to encourage you to improve morale by at least giving one of the internal candidates, and my preference would be Mr. Smith at least, the courtesy, the dignity of letting him interview for a position that he is clearly put in a whole career working his way up to, is eminently qualified for, and I think would probably be the best bet at this time when the morale of the folks in the system has taken a beating with the virus, and I think you could give them a strong message of support for the board of the faculty by electing one of theirs as one of the folks to be interviewed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, I'm June Conti. So as a teacher at a CIR school and a member of the South Louisiana Coalition for Education, I'm just reminding the board that we must keep equity at the forefront of all of our conversations and thought processes during the selection process. I hope that the conversations about equity and how our superintendent candidates plan to achieve it and their vision for an EBR will continue in the next round of interviews and during the selection process. We also need to remember that equity is a verb and must continually be flexed and addressed to meet the needs of all students. 50% of our schools are D's and F's, and we must all do our part to make sure that the next superintendent sees the urgent need for a transformation for all of our students, not just a privileged few. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next.
Hi, Sierra Hart again from the South Louisiana Coalition for Education. My ask from the board is for the next round of interviews once the candidates are selected, is that the question pool is more clear and poignant towards evidence-based responses. There shouldn't be any room for candidates to give responses that are not proven in evidence and fact. So if we're asking questions around what tangible solutions can they bring to the table to improve our district, the question should be pointed towards that so they can actually relate that experience. A lot of times candidates are able to answer around questions. So improving the pool of questions that are being asked the candidates so they can provide evidence-based responses that community members could either evaluate or look to would help us in the process, being that we don't have the same access as the interviewers. We also would like that you remember the community in this process, if there is a way to utilize some of the comments that were posed during the survey and maybe take some of the questions from the community. That way we are also a part of that process, and we implore you to continue to utilize SLICE as a partner throughout this process to gather community engagement, as well as continuing to have equity at the forefront throughout this process. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Flynn Foster. I am the chairman of the Baton Rouge Area Chamber. I am also a local business owner, own a family business that's been around since 1926. So my family's heavily invested in this community and have been for a long time. First of all, I thank the board for their efforts and everything that they do to try to educate our community and the educators that I've heard speak. I appreciate your efforts too. I come from a family of educators, mother, cousin, aunt, and 2 grandmothers. So it's not lost on me on what y'all do and how difficult the challenge is. I would ask, I represent the business owners of the chamber, the 65 members of the board, and I would ask that you continue to be bold in this process. Do not be afraid. Go forth and do whatever it takes. This community's hurting, the state's hurting, this country, this world is hurting. And it is the only way out of all of this is if we educate our children. There is no doubt that every job that anybody in this room or anywhere else does today has changed forever. It will never be the same again. And we're all wearing these things right here, and that's proof of it. And how education gets delivered is going to be different and something like none of us have ever experienced before. So I continue to challenge you to be bold, not be afraid, and continue to ask for the best for this community. My family has chosen to be here for a century, and I hope we're here for another century. And we need our families and our communities to be educated. And y'all are the ones that have that power in your hands today. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other comments from the in-person audience? You will have an opportunity at the close of the internet comments if you would like. I will now move to internet comments, and I will refresh at the end. So if you have something to put in, I will say that these are rather lengthy. So the first is from Miss Anna Fogel. I sent an email that I hope all of you received and read. I just wanted to add that I have been an advocate for our public schools since my 21-year-old daughter was in elementary school. I have served on and supported the PTOs at all of their schools, as well as serving on the board for the Gifted and Talented Students Association. Some of you may remember Beyond Bricks, where the clear message from our community was to have strong public schools. My son will be a senior next year, so I have one more year as an active parent of a public school child. I am not saying I will go away, but my sincere hope is to see the system left in the hands of a career public school administrator who has a heart for our kids and wants to see our public schools thrive. The candidate that best fits this is Adam Smith. I implore all of you to put his name on your list of candidates for an interview. Many thanks to all of you for your service and listening to me throughout the years. Next is from Samuel Herpin. I commend the search for applicants. I was very impressed with all the candidates shortlisted and their subsequent interview sessions. I am very optimistic about the future of our public school system. Next is from Miss Nikki Dangerfield. My name is Nikki Dangerfield, and I am the Regional Organizing Director with Stand for Children. As you decide on the next leader over East Baton Rouge Parish School System, I would like to remind you of the community's voice. From November 2019 to January 2020, STAN conducted a district-wide survey aimed at asking families of school-aged children what they would like to see in our next superintendent. Out of the 1,162 surveys we collected, 77% of the community said they wanted someone with experience successfully turning around struggling schools, and they preferred a candidate with experience as a superintendent or a school system leader. They also shared that in the next 5 years, their biggest hope for EBR schools was to see no more D and F rated schools. This will be the most important decision this board makes. Please keep in your minds and hearts the precious students of the classrooms as you make these decisions today. They need a leader that will focus on all students. Next is from Brenda Christopher. After viewing videos of all the candidates for superintendent for EBR school system, I would have to say that my top 2 candidates would be Quintina Tamal and Leslie Brown. Both candidates possess the experience that we're looking for in a superintendent. Every candidate was good, but these 2 stood out the most to me, especially Quintina Tamal. With her already being in the EBR system and knowing the issues that we're facing, I feel it would not take as long for her to come and implement the plans that she has to start turning our schools around. Thank you. Next is Erica Hammer, but it's a repeat from the first one because she didn't know where to put it. So I've already read that into the record. Next is from Candace Damon. The EBR school board should release the results of the public survey with details on the number of participants. Each board member should also use all of their resources to personally reach out to the constituents in their district beyond simply having a link to the survey on EBR School's website. Certain board members have taken the time to gauge their constituents. Others need to improve their efforts. All members should exhaust all resources to get community feedback and show that how they're using the feedback to make decisions. Next is from Ian McEntee. I asked to continue to ask the final candidates to define explicitly how they define equity. I appreciate the board's question in the previous round of interviews. However, many candidates answer the latter half of the question in lieu of defining their viewpoints of equity. Next is from Kenya Magana. I would like to offer my support for Dr. Tamal as a finalist for the superintendent position. Dr. Tamal is an advocate for the children in our district. She will be a steady leader during this unprecedented time. Dr. Tamal will bring much needed change and vision to move our district forward. Her work with the Innovation Network Schools speaks volumes about her values as a leader and her willingness to get the work done. Dr. Tamal is unafraid to have uncomfortable conversations to ensure that students remain the focus of decisions that are made. Her commitment to the families of EBR is evident in the work that she has done during her time in the district. Next is from Dominique Dallas. Thank you, EBR School Board, for providing transparency with interviews of the candidates. I hope that the transparency will continue with the final candidates all the while honing in on the final candidate through strong questions that require strong historical evidence that will imply future impact. Community engagement starts with the board, and we must see more from all board members. Next is from Michelle Coverson. It is time to shake the foundation that has been laid. EBR has journeyed on the same road for many years with minor accomplishments. We need someone at the head who is willing to do something different, someone that sets the bar high, knowing that they have what it takes to bring results, advancement, and resolution to fruition. Our children deserve this. Our children deserve Dr. Quintina Tamal. Dr. Tamal. Quintina Tamal's leadership will continue to bring about the steadiness and necessary change to lead students. She has an extraordinary vision and a need to change continue to move the district forward. Quintina has a deep understanding of the issues and will begin to address them immediately. As the leader she is, Quintina will continue to address root causes and long-standing issues with the proven ability that is needed to bring about change. Next is from Maria Harmon. I encourage the EBR School Board to please consider choosing our next superintendent who has experience teaching and working in the EBR school district. Someone who understands what it takes to provide effective and ethical school leadership. The insight and experience in meeting the needs of diverse student populations that are gravely impacted by systemic poverty and racism. We need a superintendent that has an equity focus when it comes to problem solving and values the input of community and individuals who are directly impacted by the issues of the school district to provide solutions. I ask that you please consider these qualities when making a decision in choosing our district's next leader. Next is from Shawan Newton Hall. EBR Public School Board members, I ask that you consider Dr. Quintina Tamal as EBR's next superintendent. She has a Christian heart, mind, and soul for the kids in East Baton Rouge. Dr. Tamal is kind, loyal, and knows exactly how to treat and interact well with her colleagues and those in the community. Mostly, Dr. Tamal is right here from our community. She knows the issues, compassion's potentials for EBR. Dr. Tamal's past accomplishments here in the school system speaks volumes and proves that her work here has already started on the right path for our school system. I ask that you please allow to continue her great works so that we may continue to head in an upward trajectory to success in East Baton Rouge. Thank you. This is another one. I don't know who it's from, but it's about Dr. Quintina Tamal. This candidate brings about necessary steadiness as we continue to lead our students and families and educators through these unprecedented times. This candidate will bring about much needed change and vision to move the district in a right direction. Again, this is in favor of Ms. Tamal, but I do not know it's from. This candidate will bring organizational infrastructure changes to achieve efficiency and effectiveness by eliminating waste. She will keep students and family needs at the center of all decisions. Next is from Anna Marie Blank. Please vote to advance Dr. Quintina Tamal, Mr. Adam Smith, and Dr. Nakia Towns to the next round of interviews. Dr. Tamal and Mrs. Smith have both submitted detailed entry plans should they become our next superintendent. I would like to see a similar plan from Dr. Towns. I was refreshing. Let me get back to you. Next is from Destiny Cooper. I have been teaching in EBR for 18 years. I believe EBR will benefit from choosing an internal candidate who will provide stability we need during transition. I also believe we need a candidate who will bring the innovation our students deserve. By choosing a candidate who already has relationships with our students and staff and who knows our community and their needs, we are more likely to experience the growth and transformation that we have been building in the last few years. We need someone with roots in the classroom, someone who has a heart for children and families, and someone who has a sharp mind to ensure equity and follow through to serve this community. Next is from Ms. Jackson. All school board members were selected by the public body of EBR, and the votes on public candidates should be public, not private. We should hear all votes from all members. Okay. Next is from Susan Winstein. As board president of Humanities AMPed, which works with schools and teachers around the district to support community-based research and student leadership, our organization urges the board to select one of the two candidates from within the district. I encourage you to select Quintina Tamal or as a second choice, Adam Smith. Next is from Jasmine Pogue. I'd like to advance Dr. Tamal to be our next superintendent. We have serious racial concerns in our school system that dates back into our history, and our school board and superintendent need to address this. I believe Dr. Tamal is the only one who has demonstrated a desire to educate herself further on race in America. She will be best suited to assist our children and to meet the needs to bridge the gaps between racial inequities in our system. Next is from Korhanda Corley. I'm trying to see if that's the same one I've already read. As a parent of children with disabilities, I'm extremely disappointed with the lack of more pertinent questions regarding special education's Individuals with Disabilities Act, Civil Rights, and Every Student Succeeds Act, free appropriate public education, Louisiana's Constitution, and cultural competence. EBR Public Schools does not need another superintendent that represents a BRAC and will continue to provide our children with greater inequities and disparities. We want and request a leader that is not in bed with the devil. We need a leader whose children actually attends or attended our traditional community schools. We need a leader our children can relate to. We require and deserve Mr. Adam Smith and Dr. Katina Jamal to advance to the next round. These two leaders have a vision and realistic plan. Let's ask them to share it in round 2. I am sure your CEO buddy would appreciate this. Also, I do not have my allotted time to speak. Thank you. That is the end of the comments. I will refresh one more time. And I believe that is all. And Ms. Jackson has put in a second comment, but I'll go ahead and read it very quickly. Clarity on the public vote, meaning the choices each board member makes as it pertains to the finalists in the school board search. So with that, we'll close public comment unless there's anyone here in the audience who would wish to make one final comment. Seeing none, we will go back to the board. Is the board very clear on the process that we will be using today?
Just one quick recommendation. The written comment, since it was made on both items, I agree with reading it only once, but perhaps makes sense that the record reflects it in both.
The record has it.
Gotcha.
And the person who submitted it said, I'm sorry, I'm putting it in both places because I don't know where it goes. So, but it's in both places in the record.
Thank you.
So is everyone on the board clear about the process we will go? We will have one sheet in front of you with each of you having your name. You will select up to, you don't have to select 3, but up to 3 candidates for the finalists. Sign the sheet and then pass them to me, and I will call the votes out in district order. And if you choose to read your own votes, I'm assuming you're going to remember them and make sure they match what you gave me. But if you would like to read your own votes, just let me know as I get to your district, and you will certainly have that opportunity. So without further ado, would everyone please mark their ballots?
We need to vote on the motion first.
Oh, we need to vote on the motion first. I'm sorry. Thank you, Ms. Armand, for keeping me in line. So, Madam Secretary, would you please vote?
Please
Please
vote.
conduct the vote.
It passes unanimous.
The motion carries unanimously. So now we'll move into this round, putting this in place. So if every board member would mark and sign their ballots, and then you can pass them to me, and I will take them and we will call them out in district order. I do not have District 4. My bad. Excuse me. Try to make sure I have everything before I start reading. So all the votes are here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So District 1, Mr. Ballew's votes are Miss Leslie Brown, Dr. Nakia Towns, and Mr. Marshall Tuck. District 2, Mr. Lannis.
Use a point of public privilege right now. As someone that is a direct product of the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board system, from elementary school up into high school, being at this table right now in this moment is immensely important to me for several reasons. One, I have come through the pipeline and I have seen several superintendents throughout the years. When I was in school, Charlotte Plessy was the superintendent. But for a lot of students, we didn't understand what a superintendent was, yet alone we didn't understand what a school board member was. So making sure that representation is out on the forefront at all times is very, very clear and very, very important. And I want everyone to know that I'm 110% invested in making sure that we get this process right. But I also want people to remember that whoever is selected as the next superintendent, they have to answer to this board. And in turn, by answering to this board, they are answering to the community as a whole. So I only ask that we just be vigilant as we work through this process. This is not an easy process. And I'm pretty sure every single board member sitting around this table has received hundreds of emails, calls, and everything every single day. My voicemail box is completely maxed out by the amount of calls I've received over the course of the last 2 weeks. So I just wanted to make that very clear that this is not an easy process as we go through it. And it does not guarantee that whoever we do pick tonight out of our 3 selections, 2 of which will not be able to go on throughout that process. So I only say that to say, let's make sure that we keep this process open. We don't want to scare anyone away, but at the end of the day, the most important people in this process are our children and our students. That's what we're doing this for. So we have to work at the table, bringing everyone together as we continue to go through this. So that's teachers, educators, community stakeholders, as well as our business community, because everybody has a voice at this table. And that's exactly how I summarize my votes tonight. I won't tell you exactly which order that is, but what I will say is that 1 vote is from myself, another vote is from the community, and the other vote will come from the business community as well. And that is, or they are as followed. Dr. Q, or Dr. Cortina Tamal, Dr. Nakia Towns, and Marshall Tuck.
Thank you. Mr. Howard, District 3.
Dr. Nakia Towns and Dr. Cortina Tamal.
District 4, Ms. Collins. Would you want to read your own or you want me to read it? Okay, Ms. Collins votes for Ms. Leslie Brown, Adam Smith, and Ms. Towns. District 5, Ms. Ware Jackson.
Ware Jackson's votes are for Dr. Nakia Towns, Dr. Quintina Tamal, and Leslie Brown.
District 6, Ms. Dyson. Ms. Dyson votes for Ms. Leslie Brown, Dr. Nakia Towns, and Marshall Tuck. District 7 is myself, and I vote for Leslie Brown, Nakia Towns, and Marshall Tuck. District 8, Ms. Bernard. Would you like for me to read them? Ms. Bernard votes for Leslie Brown and Adam Smith. And Mr. Tatman in District 9 votes for Leslie Brown and Nakia Towns. So, Madam Secretary, would you add the votes and read them out, please?
I'm checking with Mr. Guerrero to see how he wants to. Okay, I have 7 for Leslie Brown, 2 for Adam Smith, 3 for Quintina Tamal, 8 for Nakia Towns, and 4 for Marshall Tuck.
Does anyone have any disagreement with that vote count? Just last call. Does anyone have any disagreement with the vote count? So according to the motion and according to the vote count, the 2 finalists will be Mrs. Leslie Brown and Dr. Nakia Towns. Next, we will go to the announcement of meetings. The regular board meeting will be held on June 18th, 2020 at 5 p.m. Location to be determined depending on any COVID restrictions and things that we have. And as we go through the interview process and set up schedules, we may very well have one or more special meetings, which will be advertised according to public meetings law. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time and effort, and IT and staff, thank you very much.